March, 1951. Korea, amidst the frozen hills and shattered towns. Soldiers moved without clear orders. Decisions were whispered, never written. Chaos ruled behind the front lines. The winter of 1951 in Korea was relentless. Snow-coated abandoned villages. The war had already scarred the landscape. Both sides faced exhaustion. Yet behind the front line, there were orders few dared to question. Orders that left no paper trail. American and South Korean units had been regrouping after heavy losses. Communication lines were fragmented. Many commanders received instructions orally. They carried them in memory, from briefing rooms to frozen hilltops. These instructions were meant to be temporary. But temporary became permanent. Men moved with hesitation. Patrols ventured into unknown valleys, unsure if allies were near. Supplies were scarce. Vehicles were frozen solid. Small groups were sent to gather intelligence. Many never returned. Their reports vanished into the snow and silence. At headquarters, the high command debated secret strategies. They feared leaving records that could later be traced. Radios crackled with coded words. Officers memorized coordinates, troop movements, and special assignments. No one wrote anything down. Every note could be a liability. Locals spoke of strange convoys passing silently through villages at night. Soldiers carried orders sealed in envelopes but never signed. Some orders contradicted each other. Units faced conflicting commands, leading to confusion. Despite this, obedience remained strict. Any disobedience could be fatal. The Korean winter forced soldiers into small bunkers, in ruins of schools or temples. Fires burned low, smoke curling into the icy air. Rumors spread of units vanishing entirely. Men spoke quietly, aware that even their words might betray them. In the shadows, a sense of secrecy overshadowed every movement. The lack of written records meant that even victories could be forgotten. Successes were temporary and ephemeral. Every mission carried a heavy weight of uncertainty. Men depended on memory, on trust, on fear. This was a war without documentation. A war that history almost overlooked. The first whispers of disaster began with a small reconnaissance mission. It was meant to confirm enemy positions near a hill known as White Ridge. The team departed at dawn, carrying verbal instructions. They were never seen again. Headquarters recorded no report. And so began a series of operations that would fade into silence. By mid-March, confusion spread. Commands flowed down fragmented chains. Some officers improvised, making decisions based on intuition. Troops moved through minefields and abandoned bunkers. Supplies were inconsistent. Radio contact was intermittent. The enemy exploited the disorder. Ambushes became frequent. Soldiers questioned the orders they received. Fear grew alongside mistrust. Men learned to rely on their own judgment. Yet, deviation from orders carried consequences. Discipline remained a thin veil over chaos. Special assignments multiplied. Certain operations required silence. Units were ordered to destroy evidence of movements. Local villages saw convoys of men and trucks vanish into mist. Even enemy forces could not explain some disappearances. Intelligence reports were deliberately kept verbal. Officers faced moral dilemmas. Some refused risky missions. Others followed orders blindly. Casualties increased. Entire squads were lost to poorly documented operations. The high command remained detached. They recorded no casualties, no strategies. Nothing would survive in official files. Among the troops, rumors grew of hidden agendas. Decisions made behind closed doors determined life and death. Soldiers called them ghost orders. Some said the orders were meant to manipulate enemy perception. Others believed they were simple mistakes. No one could be certain. Despite losses, operations continued. Temporary victories were celebrated briefly but left no mark. Men relied on oral reports to relay success. A patrol capturing enemy documents became legendary among peers, but left no record. Commanders praised bravery verbally, but the deeds would not exist in official history. By late March, the lack of documentation had created a web of uncertainty. Men questioned if anyone truly knew what was happening. Units often acted independently, improvising against unseen threats. Mistakes multiplied. Lives were lost in silence. And the snow continued to cover the traces. It became clear that some missions would vanish completely. Survivors could only recount fragmented stories. Each memory was fragile. Each report, whispered, risked being forgotten. History itself seemed to hesitate at the edge of these secret operations. The operation at White Ridge reached its peak in late March. A small task force was sent under verbal orders. The mission: secure a hilltop and destroy enemy fortifications. Communication with headquarters was limited. No maps were provided. Soldiers fought in knee-deep snow. They encountered resistance stronger than anticipated. Men fell quickly, silently. The mission became a desperate struggle for survival. Leaders had to make decisions instantly, without guidance. Some orders conflicted in the field. Confusion intensified the danger. By nightfall, only half of the force remained. Units became scattered. Some soldiers retreated without informing others. The hilltop changed hands multiple times. Explosions echoed through frozen valleys. Fires burned villages at the edge of the battlefield. In the command tent miles away, officers recorded nothing. They waited for reports that would never arrive. Decisions continued, detached from reality. No one traced the lost soldiers. No official inquiry followed. The men at White Ridge existed only in memory. The hill was secured temporarily. But casualties were high. Entire squads vanished. Survivors returned with fragmented stories. They remembered orders whispered in corridors, the faces of fallen comrades, the weight of unseen commands. But nothing official remained. By April, the operation was a ghost. Maps showed a hill secured. Files contained no names. Historians later would struggle to find evidence. Only oral accounts preserved the truth. The secret decisions had succeeded in hiding themselves. Silence fell over the abandoned bunkers. Snow drifted across the ruined roads. Tracks of men and vehicles disappeared beneath fresh layers of white. The hills stood cold and unwelcoming. The soldiers who had followed the orders vanished from view. They carried the weight of whispered commands, but left no trace. Reports, journals, and letters were absent. No document survived. No file recorded their actions. White Ridge, once the scene of desperate struggle, was now empty. The trenches, burned-out buildings, and shattered barricades remained as hollow reminders. Fires had consumed villages at the edge of the battlefield, but the ashes faded with the wind. Weapons were lost or buried. Equipment lay frozen in the snow. The mission that had demanded such sacrifice existed only in fragmented memory. Survivors walked silently through the hills, their breath visible in the cold air. Faces were pale, eyes haunted. They had returned from operations with stories too dangerous to speak aloud. They did not write them down. They told them only in whispers, to trusted comrades, if at all. Even then, words faltered, memories slipped. By the end of the war, most had no one left to recount the events to. Names of the fallen disappeared from the records. Entire units had ceased to exist. Their sacrifices, their courage, were unrecognized. Headquarters had recorded nothing. Even victories were unacknowledged. The war moved on elsewhere, and the operations at White Ridge were erased from official history. It was as if they had never happened. Only the snow remembered the shapes of men, the echoes of gunfire, and the brief flicker of human struggle. Oral histories preserved fragments. Soldiers recounted small details, the feeling of frost biting at their hands, the sound of distant explosions, the weight of orders given silently in the tent. They remembered comrades whose names were never recorded. They recalled mistakes that led to death. They carried guilt and fear. Yet these stories reached no files. They remained ephemeral, fragile. Memory was all that survived. Months passed, then years. The landscape healed slowly. Villages were rebuilt. Roads were cleared. Trees grew over the sites of battles. Yet the memory of men who had followed orders without records faded further. Families of the missing waited, receiving no news. Some assumed the soldiers had deserted or died anonymously. Others never spoke of it. The war had moved on, indifferent to what had been lost. The lack of documentation meant that historians would later struggle to trace these events. Maps showed positions held or abandoned, but left out the human cost. Casualty reports were empty. Mission logs contained no details. The deeds of those who had fought, suffered, and died existed only in the fragmented recollections of a few survivors. Names, faces, and experiences were slowly swallowed by silence. Even decades later, veterans returned to White Ridge. They walked among the frozen hills and abandoned bunkers. They saw the same snow, the same cold winds, the same silence. The place felt hollow, as though it remembered what history forgot. They spoke quietly to themselves. The past was present only in their minds. No plaques, no monuments, no official recognition. Just memory. And emptiness. Orders had been given. Orders had been followed. But no paper trail survived. Lives were lost. Actions were erased. History moved on, blind to the details of secret operations. Only the wind carried echoes of commands whispered in cold tents. Only the snow remembered the fallen. The men who survived left quietly, unacknowledged. The hills were left to silence. White Ridge became a ghost. Time passed. Soldiers aged, stories faded. Families moved. Villages grew. Roads were rebuilt. Yet nothing could restore what had been lost. The missions that had shaped lives, determined fates, and cost countless men remained invisible. Forgotten. Buried beneath snow and silence. History did not record them. Only the memory of those who lived through it retained the fragile truth. The war continued elsewhere. Men returned to ordinary lives, carrying shadows. Yet, the events at White Ridge lingered in their minds. A mission without records, a battle without acknowledgement, a war silently erased. History forgot them. And the wind continued to carry the quiet echoes of orders given without any record. Thank you for watching. New historical stories are published regularly.